be here in Mississippi. Thank you for Eli Manning. I'm almost as big a Giant fan as I am a Yankee fan. This used to get me in terrible trouble in New York City because New York is blessed, or depending on your perspective, cursed, with two teams. We have the Giants and the Jets. We have the Yankees and the Mets. And all my predecessors used to claim they rooted for both teams. I had some predecessors, all of whom were Democrats, who they actually would have a Yankee Met hat. Yankees on one side, Mets on the other. They'd flip it around like this. Kind of indicated the way they did politics, too. Flip around. So I said, when I became mayor, just to be honest with people, I'm going to tell them who I root for. I couldn't fool them. I used to be seeing the Yankee games all the time. I was U.S. attorney constantly. Giant games. Went to the Super Bowl in '86 with the Giants. So I'm going to just be honest. I was asked, who do you root for? I root for the Yankees. I root for the Giants. I used to wear a Yankee hat, a Giant hat. I'd get invited to Shea Stadium for the opening of the Mets. I'd wear my Yankee hat. I'd get invited by Rudy Johnson, who's a big Republican, by the way, big Republican fundraiser, to the Jet games. I'd wear my Giant hat. And I thought, well, people just respect me for being honest. Right? Being honest. Here's what used to happen. I would go to Shea Stadium, and it would start the minute I walked in. Go back to the Bronx, you bum. Get out of here. Drop dead. The rest I can't repeat. Rudy would invite me to a Jet game. Oh, it got even worse, because they drink more at Jet games. It got even worse. So I went through years of this. Finally, September 11 happened. Terrible attack on America. Kind of brought everyone together. And one of the wonderful things the Mets did, Bobby Valentine, who unfortunately I think is going to get fired today or tomorrow, who was the manager of the Mets, now he's the manager of the Red Sox, did a wonderful thing. Spontaneously. No one asked him to do this. He called up my office. He asked for 100 hats of firefighters and police officers. We sent it to him. I think he was in Atlanta or Chicago. I don't remember where they were playing. But we sent him these hats. We thought he wanted to just wear them ceremonially. We put them on the Mets, and they played baseball with the hats on. And then they played another game with the hats on. And then they were coming back to New York. And the commissioner of baseball ordered them to get rid of the hats because it violated their contract with Reebok or Adidas or whoever pays them for the hats. So Bobby Valentine called up my office and asked, could I please be at the game because he was going to do something special. So I said I'd come to the game. Only could spend 2 innings there because we were in the middle then of, worried about another attack. We may have been in the middle of anthrax at the time. So I only could go for two innings. So I showed up at the game, and Bobby had them all warming up with their Met hats on to comply with the commissioner's ruling. And then, as they were coming out to play ball, running out on the diamond, he handed each Met New York City police officer's hat, New York City firefighter's hat, Port Authority police officer's hat, and right in front of the commissioner, they just put the hats on. And Bobby Valentine told the press, this is my way of telling the commissioner to go. I won't repeat the rest of it. I love this guy. So, I walk in, I get a standing ovation at Shea Stadium. First time in my life I ever got a standing ovation at Shea Stadium. They're cheering me, yelling for me. This is right after September 11th. I have to rush out, and the press is waiting for me. And they said to me, because the New York press knew how I was hated at Shea Stadium, they said to me, how did it feel to get applauded, a standing ovation at Shea Stadium? I said, well, I have to admit it felt pretty good, but I'm going to feel a lot better when the city goes back to normal and they start booing me again. And now they do. So that's just one story about how New York City overcame its crisis and is back to being a normal city in which the two teams hate each other. The Giants and Jets hate each other. I'm going to talk about energy independence. A great time to talk about it because we're either going to move in the direction of energy independence next year or we're not. Not that I'm giving a political speech or anything, but I think you know what I mean. We're going to go in one dramatic direction or the other dramatic direction. And one of them is so absolutely necessary for our country for so many reasons that I don't understand what slows us down. And this organization that the governor started, and I think Governor Barber started this, and you're continuing it, Governor Bryant. This is a wonderful thing to do because it illustrates something that Romney said last night. It was at the cornerstone of the president I admire so much, Ronald Reagan's philosophy, which is that states are the laboratories. Remember, Governor Romney said last night, the states are the laboratories of democracy. Well, there's another way of looking at it. They're sort of the laboratories in which a lot of good things develop that would never occur to the federal government. And you're being a laboratory for how to exploit the energy resources that Mississippi has so that you are a net exporter of energy rather than an importer of energy is a microcosm of exactly what the United States should be doing. And if you can get it done, and 5, 10, 15, 20 other states can get it done, maybe it sort of shows the way for the federal government to do it. I'll give you a brief example of a very different kind of problem where the solution came from the states. Welfare reform. I know Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich get all the credit for welfare reform, but you know who really should get the credit for welfare reform? It's Tommy Thompson, who was the governor of Wisconsin. And me. I borrowed it from him. I didn't borrow it from Bill Clinton. I didn't borrow it from Newt Gingrich. They hadn't done it yet. I borrowed it from Tommy Thompson. He did it in Wisconsin. He decided to require welfare people to work, let them work for their welfare. He decided to try to take his welfare employees and turn them into employment agents. So instead of just putting people on welfare, they'd start looking for jobs for people. Well, that worked really well in Wisconsin. It was a terrific success. 2-3 years before I became the mayor, I called him, asked him to explain it to me, met with him, he explained it to me. I hired some of his people. I incorporated it into New York. When I started, we had 1.1 million people on welfare. When I ended, we had 500,000 people on welfare. It came from Tommy Thompson. What I did, what President Clinton did, what Newt did, what a lot of other states did, started in one state, they did it well, everybody else figured it out. There are plenty of examples like that. But this is enormously important, energy. I was in China, I know they were talking about China earlier today, but I was in China last November or December. And I was at a conference in Shanghai with President Clinton. And it was a conference on economic development plans for China and for the United States and for the Pacific region. And 2 representatives of the Chinese government, Chinese business government, they talked about China's energy plan. And they talked about why, if China is going to continue to be successful in moving people out of poverty into the middle class, which they do in the range of about 20 to 30 million, maybe 40 million a year, they're just going to have more energy. The whole thing can be stalled if they remain stagnant in energy development. So they figure they have to develop sources of energy about 20-30% more per year for the next 10 years. Which is, the kind of logical thinking that you have to have. You keep energy stagnant, then your economy declines. If energy declines, then your economy declines even worse. And if energy grows, then you present a picture and a reality of economic growth. It's as simple as that, because in order to put people to work, you have to have energy. You have to have heat, you have to have air conditioning, you have to have fuel. The more people are working, the more you need. So China understands this in a way that in some cases, at least this current administration in Washington, really just doesn't get it. So what does that lead to? It leads to the following speech that these 2 fellows gave, which I can give right now because it's my speech. They said, here's what China is doing. China is trying to buy coal all over the world. You don't want to burn the coal in the United States? We'll burn it in China. Now that's really totally crazy. We're holding down coal and we're selling it to China. And why are we developing coal? Because we think it's bad for the environment. What happens if it's burned in China? It doesn't hurt the environment. It's the same coal. They don't burn it any different. In fact, they probably don't burn it as clean as we burn it. So we're protecting the environment. I mean, this is what I call, now this is New York talk now, this is what I call stupid. So what's the next thing China is doing? China is trying to figure out what kind of oil reserves they have, what kind of oil reserves are available all over the world. Let's go drilling, let's go buy it. They're going to buy oil all over the world. So they have increasing quantities of oil available to them. They make a deal with Cuba. They make a deal with Cuba to drill oil 20 miles off the coast of Cuba. 20 miles off the coast of Cuba, if you check the geography, is 70 miles off the coast of Florida. We're not allowed to drill 70 miles off the coast of Florida. So, Cuba and China are taking our oil. Now, why don't we drill 70 miles off the coast of Florida? Because it's too dangerous. This assumes that the Chinese and the Cubans will do it safer than we'll do it. We're letting them steal our oil, and we're letting them put our shoreline in jeopardy. And the Obama administration can't figure this out. This is what I also call stupid. No wonder he looked so bad last night. How do you defend these things? How do you defend it? How could you possibly defend letting Cuba and China take our oil that we should be drilling 70 miles off the coast of Florida? Other than, I don't know, you're living in some kind of an ideological dream world that makes sense only to you. So China is trying to get all the oil that it can get. China is building 40 nuclear power plants. Actually, probably about 60. They don't take 35 years to permit a nuclear power plant in China. They take about a month to permit a nuclear power plant in China. They don't take 10 years to build it, they take 2 years to build it. They're going to have nuclear power. So what does nuclear power do for them? Nuclear power does for them, if it doesn't make them energy independent, it makes them more closer to energy independent, a lot more energy secure. Well, gee, it could do the same thing for us, couldn't it? I mean, we built 104 nuclear power plants, then China Syndrome went on. Hollywood did China Syndrome with Jane, what's her name now? Hanoi Jane, right? With Jane Fonda, right? And then we had 3 Mile Island, where nobody died, by the way. We had 3 Mile Island, no loss of life because of 3 Mile Island. We stopped developing nuclear power. We invented nuclear power. We had a great president of the United States tell us that the real art here would be the peaceful use of nuclear power. That was Dwight Eisenhower who said that. We invented nuclear power and we gave it away. We gave away our edge. We gave away our leading role. Now, 80% of the source of power in France comes from nuclear power plants. Because France continued to build nuclear power plants. Now, China's building nuclear power plants, and they're looking to France for the technology. They should look at us. We're the ones who developed it, but we gave it away. Now, nuclear power, like any other form of power, has danger. Many of you are in the industry. This is a dangerous thing to do. To develop power is a dangerous thing to do. We've lost lives to extracting coal. I ran a coal company, believe it or not, for 2.5 years in eastern Kentucky. I know how dangerous coal mining is. I even know how dangerous strip mining can be. You know how dangerous oil can be? Extraction of oil. Any form of energy can be dangerous. Nuclear power is dangerous. What that means is you have to have proper security measures. Well, we have, and we've had nuclear power in this country for 40 years, and we've never lost a life. Not one to nuclear power. So, of course we got to be careful about it. But should you become paralyzed because a bunch of crazy environmentalists raise concerns that don't logically mean anything? When you look at it in terms of the analysis of risk and reward. Well, China has looked at it. China is building 40 or 50 nuclear power plants. We've got one that we're working on. God knows when it's going to be built. And I predict for you, if President Obama is re-elected, it will not get built because it'll get stopped. because that's the pressure on him from the left. Then we have fracking for natural gas. This is a wonderful thing because this actually starts to take the possibility of energy independence for America if you combine it with expanding nuclear power, and it makes it, if not a reality, at least close enough to a reality so that if we were 70 or 80% energy independent, we'd be functionally 100% energy independent. So what's China doing about fracking? China is coming to the United States, studying how we do it in Texas and other parts of the United States, studying how we've done it successfully for 20 years, and they want to go full steam ahead. As fast as possible, let's do fracking. Let's figure out if we have as many reserves on our part of the world, on our part of the globe, as you have on yours. What's America doing? At least the administration, and in my state, New York, slowing it down as much as possible. Let's slow it down. So here's how we're going to do it. We're going to do it based on wind and solar. Well, I think wind and solar has possibilities. Right now, it's about less than 2% of our source of energy. But how you rely solely on 2% for your growth is irresponsible. It's an immature, childish, silly notion. If we're going to become energy independent, we're going to become energy independent because of coal, nuclear power, natural gas, and oil. Because that's where the big numbers are, and that's the only way you can do it. And why should we be energy independent? We should be energy independent, first of all, because it's a matter of national security. The whole geopolitical map changes, the whole geopolitical equation changes if we're energy independent. All our concern about the Middle East changes. Russia's power diminishes dramatically when Russia no longer has the ability to extort from Eastern Europe and the other parts of Europe because they're the sole source of their natural gas. All of a sudden, Putin just becomes, I don't know, Castro or something, Chavez, or whatever the heck Putin thinks he is. A retired, bitter, old KGB agent. That's what it becomes. But the reality is that his power resides in his energy role in Eastern Europe. And that's why he's important. Not because they're a dynamic economy, not because they're a great country, not because he's providing great leadership. You change that geopolitical fact, and our foreign policy becomes, a lot different. That's number one. Number two, if what happens next year happens the way I would like to see it happen, and we have a president that is all of the above rather than just say no, which is what basically President Obama is, just say no to nuclear power, just say no to coal, just say no to real oil drilling, certainly not on public lands, oh my God, and just slow down fracking. If we replace that with just say yes to all of that, our economy booms. There's nothing can do more for an economy than expanding your sources of energy. Nothing can expand it. It's a multiplier effect that is dramatic. I know it's not as good as trickle-down government. I love that phrase. Because for years, they used to beat us up with, trickle-down economics. And see, I don't even think it's trickle-down government. It's like government taking over, which is really the philosophy. But the way you build an economy is at the grassroots. And that's what energy does. Energy, first of all, you do an energy project, you provide jobs for the project. Then, after the project is done, there are jobs left behind for the people who have to work with the oil well for the next 5 years, 10 years, or the nuclear power plant for the next 40 or 50 years, or the extraction of natural gas for the next 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years. So you leave behind the jobs to build it, the jobs to maintain it, the jobs to expand it. You create an enormous number of jobs in the whole process of funding it. You create a whole number of jobs in the whole process of supplying the food that's necessary for the workers, the other logistical concerns that are necessary. It's a multiplier effect that is really dramatic. And as the governor pointed out to me before when we were talking, these are jobs that are 2.5 times more than the usual job that's provided for a person. In other words, these are the kind of high-quality jobs that seem to be eluding America right now for people that are out of work. So this is a tremendous multiplier effect in exactly the right way. a multiplier effect in the private economy where the taxpayer doesn't have to pay for the workers that are hired, which is what happens when you expand government, right? Instead, the workers contribute to the government. And the more workers that can contribute, the less the rate has to be of taxes. And then we have an economy that really starts growing like an American economy, like an economy premised on private enterprise, entrepreneurship, rather than more of a social democratic model, which unfortunately has been dominating us for the last 2 or 3 years. And energy is a source of it. And the fact that you're spending so much time figuring out how here in Mississippi you can be as energy independent as possible is a great, great model for what other states have to do. If you have to do it against the grain of the federal government that's going the other direction, well, at least you'll be better off by doing it here in Mississippi. And if you get what I think will happen, which is real support in Washington for doing this, then you can start really growing incrementally. But in any event, this is a wonderful thing that you're doing, and this is very, very realistic. And I just wish my state were doing it, to tell you the truth. And hopefully, at some point, we will be. So I thought I would stop and take a few questions, and you can ask me about anything. You can ask me about energy, you can ask me about politics, or you could ask me about the New York Yankees. Last night won 14-2, which was slightly less than the number by which Governor Romney won last night.
Okay, we have a microphone around the room. If you want to ask a question, raise your hand.
Or you can yell.
Washington Nationals fan.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'd like to know if in the presidential campaign to go forward, how Governor Romney will take it over top and do something in Ohio and bring this up last night, it looked like, and will we be able to continue to do that?
Well, how will Governor Romney be able to switch some of the swing states, Ohio being the one that seems to be the most stubborn and the most difficult? The reality is, Ohio troubles me. I see a path for him winning Governor Romney winning Florida. I see a path for him winning Virginia. I believe he will definitely win North Carolina. Those are some of the states that President Obama had last time. Feel pretty comfortable about Colorado, where going into the debate he's only 1 point behind. But Ohio seems very stubborn. So I asked Senator Portman that question yesterday, who obviously would know Ohio better than I do. And he said it's really two things. The thing the news media focuses on is the economy in Ohio is doing better than the rest of the country. The unemployment in Ohio is about 6.1, 6.2%, as opposed to 8.1%. And he said that he does not believe that's as big a factor as the media believes, because when you poll people in Ohio, they have exactly the same percentage as you have in Mississippi or any place else on whether the country is headed in the right direction or the wrong direction. In other words, about 67, 68% believe the country is headed in the wrong direction. Well, if you think the country is headed in the wrong direction, you should be pretty able to be persuaded that you don't vote for the president. He said what's holding it up is a very effective Obama campaign against him starting in May, in which they really devastated with negative ads, which he never answered. He never answered because he didn't have the money to do it. He never answered because his campaign didn't respond, in which they painted him as, this very rich, uncaring guy who doesn't care about people, he just cares about himself. Rand Bain, he said, to the people of Ohio, Bain sounds like the way you would refer to organized crime. It's like there must be this group of criminals who do all these terrible things. And he said until the last week they haven't really defended themselves. So therefore they're coming out of a big gap. With all that, he's behind by 4% in Ohio. 5. Not behind by. In New York he's behind by 15. So it's doable. It's doable if he. I think last night's debate helps him tremendously, because in some ways, having demonized him so much, it's a big shock to the American people that this guy wasn't spitting at people on the stage. I think they expected a guy that was going to come out and start spitting at people, throwing things around the stage, saying, I hate everyone, and, get lost. Instead, he turned out to be extremely intelligent, very much on top of the facts, personable, sense of humor. The President of the United States looked like he was searching for his teleprompter for the entire night. I felt so bad for him, I wanted him to give it. I was like halfway through, give him his damn teleprompter. Maybe we get through some of these things. So I think he can build on that. And is it a definite? The debate last night gives the Romney campaign a chance to take off. The question is, can they capitalize on it? The chance is there now. The next 2 weeks will tell the tale. They will debate for 2 more weeks. So President Obama can't come back for 2 more weeks and repair the damage that was done to him. These are 2 weeks in which people in Ohio are voting. And this is the time to really take advantage of it.
Another question? Right up here, Governor.
Mayor, when will they finish the facilities, the buildings that are taking place in the World Trade Center?
That's a very good question, Governor. The question was, when will they finish the building at the World Trade Center? The major office building is now basically finished. It's now the highest building in New York, maybe the highest building in the U.S. at this point. The top quarter of the building still has to be completely finished, but the whole structure is up. My guess is it'll be ready for occupancy before the next September 11th. So that's on target. That's on target to get done, and it's quite beautiful. And it's a single building rather than 2, but it's a very striking, very beautiful building. The holdup has been the museum. The museum, which really occupies the space where the 2 towers are. In fact, the 2 towers are now basically 2 big pools, beautiful pools, with the names of all the people who died engraved around the pools, and the pools are lit at night. And then in the middle of that, somewhat above ground, is a beautiful museum. That museum was, the building was built and done last September 11th. I got a tour of it about 3 weeks before the 10th anniversary of September 11th. Should have been open this September 11th. And about a week after last September 11th, the mayor and the 2 governors got into a fight over funding. Meaning Mayor Bloomberg on the one hand, and Governor Cuomo and Governor Christie on the other. We got into a big fight about $300 million. Who was going to pay about $300 million in the cost that was necessary to get it all finished? The city contended that the Port Authority, which is run by the 2 governors, should pay for it. The 2 governors said that the foundation that was running the museum, which is essentially privately funded, most of the money having been raised by Mayor Bloomberg. In fact, most of the money probably contributed by Mayor Bloomberg. Not really, actually. He contributed about $10 million and he raised about $400. So he did a great job of raising the money. They said he had to pay it. And according to him, they had to pay it. And that stopped all. So they stopped all continuing construction then. They finally resolved the dispute on September 10th, 2012, and now construction is going to start again. If it does start, it'll be done in a year. But so far, it hasn't started. They said they resolved the dispute the night before September 11th, but I bet that both governors, being in politics, know there was a reason to say that, even if they might not have solved it, because they didn't want the bad publicity on September 11th still fighting. I'm not sure they really resolved it, and it's a shame. It really is a shame because I'm very close to the families, many of them that lost loved ones on September 11th. And this museum being held up is very, very, very damaging to them. It makes them feel that people can't put politics aside to deal with the enormity of their loss. And I wish I suggested to them, why don't you split it 150, which is the general way I resolve most disputes. Split it in half and stop fighting. But some of this is also who's going to control the site in the future. Is the mayor going to get to control it, or the governor's going to get to control it? I think there's a fight there too, and that's getting really nasty. Here's the difference, and I say this most respectfully because I like all three of them. Governor Christie is. I was the first person to campaign for him. I endorsed him, and I love him, and I think he's terrific. And he reminds me of a young me. Because he's tough, and he says weird things. Governor Cuomo's been a better Democratic governor than I could ever have any right to expect. And Mayor Bloomberg has done a terrific job in New York City when I thought it would be turned over to a Democratic hack that would turn it back into like a political jobs program. However, no one of the three of them was there when the attack took place. They didn't live through it the way Governor Pataki and I did. Now, we lived it. We saw people die in front of us. We went to, between the two of us, probably 300 funerals. So I think somehow the two of us would have figured this out. We would have realized it's not about, so okay, you put up half the money, I'll put up half the money. How about I appoint somebody and you appoint somebody and we'll both control it. They don't have that. They don't have that same connection to it. So to them, I don't mean to be unfair, but it's a little bit more like just another project, as opposed to people are buried. Two-thirds of the families never recovered a single body part for their loved one, as my coroner said, evaporated. So this is their burial place. And they've been waiting now for 11 years to have a place to go respect the memory of their loved one, and it's being held back. So that's probably a little more emotional than it should be, but I feel very strongly about it.
What role do you see for electrified vehicles if we should develop a positive energy policy?
What role do I see for electric vehicles if we develop a positive energy policy? I mean, I'm not an expert. I have this great fantasy that I'd love to plug my car in, and plug my iPhone, and I can charge it up, then go drive it. Do I think that's possible, given how we develop things in this country? Yeah, I think that's possible. But here's the thing that environmentalists don't get. You're going to need more electricity in order to do that. You're going to need a tremendous amount more electricity to do that. If everybody starts plugging their cars into the wall, and we don't supply in New York City enough 30% more electricity, the city will black out. I mean, it will require 20, 30, maybe 35% more electricity than we presently have. So now where do you get that? Well, you get that from coal, right? Nuclear power, natural gas. I mean, so yeah, I can see electric automobiles. But if we're going to do electric automobiles, we better be thinking like China. How do we increase our source of energy by 20 to 30% a year, and particularly our source of energy for electricity? So it's a great answer, but it puts even more emphasis on how we're going to grow this energy resource that we have.